Every song you have heard since 1953 has been tuned to a frequency that breaks the mathematical harmony of nature. The music industry standardized 440 Hz, but the original tuning systems used for 3,000 years were built on a completely different number. Today, we decode what that number was and what it did to your mind. The Corpus Hermeticum, a text attributed to Thoth himself, contains a principle that modern acoustics accidentally confirmed in 1967. It is the third Hermetic principle, the law of vibration, and it does not describe sound, it describes the operating system of reality itself. In 1953, the International Organization for Standardization held a vote. Delegates from 38 countries agreed that the note A above middle C would vibrate at exactly 440 cycles per second. That single decision rewired every instrument, every recording studio, every orchestra on Earth, and almost nobody questioned why. Before 1953, there was no universal pitch. Mozart composed at 421 Hz. Baroque organs in Northern Europe were tuned to 465. Italian opera houses preferred 432. The idea that one single frequency could serve all music, all cultures, all purposes, that was not science. That was standardization for industry. In Cymatics experiments, where sound frequencies vibrate physical matter into visible patterns, 432 Hz consistently produces symmetrical, coherent, geometric shapes. Hexagons, mandalas, structures that mirror the geometry found in snowflakes, honeycombs, and cell division. 440 Hz produces fragmented, asymmetrical chaos. There's a detail in the Egyptian temple records that scholars have mostly overlooked. The priests who served in the inner sanctuaries were not just trained in ritual, they were trained in vocalization. The Egyptians had a word for this practice. They called it Heka. Most translations render it simply as magic. We will come back to that. We covered in the mentalism video how the Hermeticists described the universe as a living mental construct, consciousness as the substrate of everything. But what we did not address, what I did not have the evidence for yet, is the mechanism by which that mental construct transmits itself into physical form. Vibration is that mechanism. 432 is not a random number. The radius of the Sun is 432,000 miles. The number of years in the Kali Yuga, the ancient Hindu cycle of cosmic decline, is 432,000. There are 432 threads in the smallest unit of a Buddhist mandala weaving. The frequency 432 Hz is a mathematical harmonic of the Schumann resonance, Earth's own electromagnetic pulse. Now here is where I need to be honest with you, because there are two ways to read this evidence, and the one you choose changes everything. Some researchers argue 432 Hz is objectively superior because of these mathematical alignments to nature. Others argue pitch is entirely relative. The ratios between notes stay identical regardless of your starting frequency. One position says the number matters, the other says only the relationship matters, and both have evidence. The Corpus Hermeticum, Book 11, states it directly. Nothing in the cosmos is without motion. Nothing that is motionless can be real. The Kybalion translates this into its third great principle. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. This is not metaphor. This is a claim about the fundamental nature of matter. In 1967, physicist Erwin Schrödinger's wave equation was experimentally verified at the subatomic level. Particles are not solid objects, they are standing waves, localized vibrations in a quantum field. What the Hermeticists wrote 2,000 years ago, quantum mechanics confirmed. Matter is vibration, not has vibration, is vibration. The frequency determines the form. Dr. Masaru Emoto's water crystal experiments, controversial but repeatedly photographed, showed that water exposed to 432 Hz formed symmetrical crystalline structures. Water exposed to 440 Hz formed fragmented, incomplete patterns. Your body is 60% water. Every cell membrane vibrates. The question is not whether frequency affects you, it is whether you have ever once chosen which frequency. The pattern is clear. Pythagorean tuning was based on harmonic ratios derived from nature. The Hermeticists encoded vibration as a fundamental law. Cymatics shows 432 Hz producing coherent geometry. Modern physics confirms matter is vibration. The answer seems obvious. Just retune everything. Switch your music to 432 Hz. Download the converter apps. Adjust your digital audio workstation. Problem solved. The ancient frequency restored, the industrial distortion corrected. You can find 10,000 videos that end right here with exactly this conclusion. Except, there's a problem. When you pitch shift a recording from 440 to 432, you lower the fundamental frequency, but you do not change the overtone series, the resonant body of the instrument, or the harmonic nodes that the performer shaped in real time. You get a lower pitch, you do not get a different vibrational architecture. And the Hermetic texts never once specify a single correct frequency. Not once. The Kybalion does not say vibrate at 432 Hz and you will be enlightened. It says, and this is critical, he who understands the principle of vibration has grasped the scepter of power, not he who listens to the right frequency, he who understands the principle. The distinction is enormous. The Hermeticists were not prescribing a playlist, they were describing a law of nature, and the power lies in comprehension, not consumption. If the Hermetic principle of vibration is correct, if everything you are is defined by its rate of vibration, then this is not a music problem. It means every sound you passively absorb, every environment you sit in, every thought you leave unexamined is actively tuning you. You have never been a passive listener. You have been an instrument being played, and accepting that means you can never unhear it. Remember the Egyptian word we set aside? Heka. Most Egyptologists translate it as magic, but the hieroglyph is more specific. Heka literally means activating the Ka. The Ka is the vital energetic double, your vibrational pattern, your energetic blueprint. Heka is the practice of using sound, specific, deliberate, calibrated sound, to restructure the Ka itself. The Emerald Tablet says, as above, so below, but in the context of vibration, this means the frequency of your inner state is the blueprint your outer reality is being constructed from. The Egyptians did not chant to please the gods. They chanted to build themselves, cell by cell, thought by thought, into resonance with Maat, the vibrational order of the cosmos itself. This is what we set out to find. Not which frequency is right, but why frequency matters at all. And the answer was buried in a word most Egyptologists translate as magic. The temple was not a place of worship. It was a tuning instrument. Every dimension, the height of the ceiling, the width of the corridor, the angle of the walls was calculated to amplify specific frequencies and dampen others. The priest did not enter the temple to pray. He entered the temple to be recalibrated. Acoustic analysis of the Hypostyle Hall at Karnak, 134 columns packed into 54,000 square feet, reveals a resonant frequency of 95 to 120 Hz. That is the exact frequency range that modern neuroimaging identifies as stimulating deep meditative states and prefrontal cortex activation. The Egyptians were not guessing. They were engineering consciousness through architecture. This was not limited to Egypt. Gothic cathedrals, Chartres, Notre Dame, Cologne were built with barrel vaults and stone walls that amplify frequencies between 100 and 120 Hz. The builders called these spaces houses of God. The Hermeticists would have called them resonance chambers for consciousness transformation. Every time you have walked into a cathedral and felt something shift inside you, a sudden calm, an unexpected emotion, a sense of something larger, that was not spiritual. That was acoustic. Barrel vaults and stone walls amplify frequencies between 100 and 120 Hz, the exact range that neuroimaging studies show stimulates the prefrontal cortex and dampens the amygdala's fear response. The medieval builders did not have brain scanners. They had the Hermetic principle, same mechanism, 800 years apart. Now look at where you spend your day. Rectangular rooms, parallel walls, the worst possible configuration for acoustic coherence because they create standing waves and resonant dead zones. Fluorescent lights humming at 120 Hz with harmonic distortion. Music pumped through earbuds at 440 Hz. You are living inside a dissonance engine and calling it normal. The Hermetic principle of vibration was never about finding the one right frequency. It was about understanding that you are a vibrational being living in a vibrational environment, and that the relationship between those two vibrations determines everything you think, feel, and become. So the real question is, what do you do with that? The first practice is the oldest, your own voice. Vocal toning, sustaining a single pitch with your natural voice, generates vibration from within your own body. The overtone series produced by your vocal cords is unique to your physiology. No app, no speaker, no external source can replicate the coherence of vibration generated by your own instrument. The Egyptians knew this. The Hermetic priests practiced this. It costs nothing and requires no technology. The second practice is conscious sound auditing. For one full day, track every sound source you encounter. The hum of your refrigerator, the background music in every store, the frequency of your notifications, the resonance of the room you sleep in. You cannot manage what you have never measured. The Hermeticists called this the first step of transmutation, awareness of the current vibration before any attempt to change it. Now here is a claim that half of you will push back on, and I want you to. The Kybalion says mental transmutation happens by changing the vibration, but there are two schools. One says you change your vibration by changing your environment, the sounds, the spaces, the music. The other says you change your vibration by changing your mental state directly through meditation, thought discipline, emotional mastery, and the environment follows. The Hermeticists seem to teach the latter. The Egyptians seem to have practiced the former. Which is primary? That tension is unresolved. The third practice is spatial acoustics. Asymmetric furniture placement breaks up standing waves. Soft materials, textiles, rugs, and curtains absorb harsh reflections. Eliminate constant low-frequency hum from appliances when possible. You are not decorating a room. You are tuning an instrument that you sit inside for 8 hours a day. The Egyptian priests would have understood this immediately. They designed every room they entered with acoustic intent. And this is where knowing the principle and living the principle diverge. You can understand that vibration shapes consciousness. You can retune your music and rearrange your room. But the Hermetic texts suggest something far more demanding, that your thoughts themselves must be brought into harmonic coherence, not just the sounds around you, the sound you are. And that is a practice most modern seekers read about but never sustain. Now you have the tools, not just to listen differently, but to recognize that every environment is an instrument playing you. And you have the ability to choose your tuning. That is the second payoff of the Hermetic principle of vibration. Not a frequency to download, a faculty to develop. The 440 Hz standard is not a conspiracy, it is a symptom of a civilization that severed sound from its original function. The Hermeticists encoded in their third principle a truth that modern physics now confirms. Vibration is not a property of matter. Vibration is matter. Frequency is not something a thing has. Frequency is what a thing is. And that includes you. You are not a body that produces vibration. You are a vibration that produces a body. Every thought you entertain, every emotion you sustain, every environment you tolerate is tuning the instrument that you are. The third Hermetic principle is not asking you to change your playlist. It is asking you to recognize that you have never stopped broadcasting. If vibration is identity, if your frequency is not something you possess but something you are, then changing your frequency does not adjust you. It replaces you. The person who vibrates at a new rate is, by the Hermetic definition, a new person. And that raises a question the texts do not answer. If the law of vibration means every transformation is a death and a rebirth, then who is the you that decides to change? That is a door we have not opened yet. But there is one more variable the Hermeticists identified, one that most people never consider. You can tune your frequency. You can calibrate your sound environment. Excitedly, the geometry of your physical space creates a vibrational architecture that either amplifies or destroys everything you have just built. You can tune your music to perfect frequencies, but if you are sitting in a room filled with chaotic geometric clutter, your timeline will still stall. Click the video on the screen right now to learn the 5-minute spatial reset hack.